So, my name is John Niknadovich, and I'm going to be giving you a speech about Duel Monsters and the Heart of the Cards. Duel Monsters is a game that involves much more than cards and numbers. The origin of the game is deeply rooted in ancient Egyptian civilization, and it has many ties to its cultures and ideas. One does not simply play the game as you would play any other because there's no one correct way to play this game, but there is one simple rule that every duelist must follow in order to be successful, and that is to believe in the heart of the cards. In this speech, I intend to teach you the basics of Duel Monsters, its origin, and its ties to ancient Egyptian culture. So, Duel Monsters is a game in which opponents face off or duel each other with decks of cards that contain monster, spell, and trap cards. Here I have an example of a monster card on the left, a spell card on the right, and a trap card on the furthest right. Each of these has its own specific purpose, but the goal of the duel is to reduce your opponent's life points to 0. And you can do that through many ways, which I will explain in the speech. So first, I will explain what a monster card is. A monster card is a card which is played that has a predetermined attack and defense statistic. And those statistics help you by allowing you to attack and or defend against your opponent. And so, in order to summon a monster, it is very simple. Monsters with stars, the levels, determine the power of the monster. And so monsters with 4 or less stars can just be normal summoned during a player's standby phase. Monsters with 5 to 6 stars can be summoned by tributing a monster that was already summoned and is in play on the field. And then monsters with 7 to 8 stars require 2 tribute summons, which is what the Dark Magician here requires because it has 7 stars. And some monsters are summoned through other means, which includes tribute summoning and fusion summoning, but we are not going to get into that much detail in my speech today. Some monsters have effects that aid the duelist in their duel, either by helping them or hindering the opponent, which has the same effects as spell and trap cards, which I will explain in just a second. When a monster attacks, it inflicts damage to the opponent's life points based on the difference between the attacking monster and the defending monster's attack points. But since each monster has a defense statistic, if a monster is in defense position when attacked, the owner of the card that is being destroyed does not lose any life points as it is in defense position. So now I will move on and explain what spell and trap cards are. Spell and trap cards are used to help and or hinder you or your opponent in a duel, which helps duels move and flow a lot better, and sometimes it can really change the outcome of a duel. There are different kinds of spell and trap cards, which include equip, field, and continuous. Equip spells and traps are traps and or spells that you, when activated, you equip to a monster and or other card, and then the 2 cards basically become one and the same, and it either helps the card is attached to or it hinders it and hurts that card. Field spells are spells that are played that have a continuous effect in which it helps certain types of monsters. And I will go back. As you can see, the Dark Magician is a dark type monster, and so any field spell that helps dark type monsters would give this monster a advantage, whether it be attack or defense. And continuous spells or trap cards have an ongoing effect that changes aspects of other cards when played. So now that you understand the basics of Duel Monsters, there's a lot more to it than that, but now that the fundamentals have been stated, we'll take a look at its origin and where it all began. The origin of the game goes back many millennia to ancient Egypt, and the game was originally used among pharaohs and sorcerers to help settle disputes, and the games were actually real life in which the pharaohs and sorcerers would summon monsters from what was known as the Shadow Realm. The Shadow Realm is essentially an inescapable realm filled with monsters with powers that are incomprehensible to the mortal and the mortal realm. Many sorcerers would battle the pharaoh for his title, And this went on for years and centuries until eventually the Pharaoh sealed his spirit away inside what is known as the Millennium Puzzle. The Millennium Puzzle is the one in the center there, and the rest around it are the 7 Millennium items. And it is said and rumored that anyone who controls the power of all 7 Millennium items can then resummon and have the ability to tap the Shadow Realm, just as the ancient pharaohs and sorcerers did. And that power was sealed away for a reason. And so it is very crucial for anybody and everybody that nobody contained that much power. And so since all these were sealed away, it was sealed away for thousands of years, and eventually the game was brought back because an entrepreneur millionaire known as Maximilian Pegasus was on a journey to help find or help his wife, who was very struggling and very sick. And so he went on an archaeological dig because he had heard rumors of these powers and things that nobody could comprehend. And he found them, and he found much more than he had actually bargained for. And in this, he discovered the power of all the different monsters and spells. And since he was a millionaire, what he did is he transformed that into a real-life game of Duel Monsters. He transferred it into cards and things like that, but since he did discover it and the actual ancient powers still lie within these cards, it is very important to understand that it's not just cards that are being played. It is much more than that, because inside are ancient spirits and culture that we don't quite understand, and it is crucial that things stay the way they are. And this card game that we know today, it is Duel Monsters. So in conclusion, Duel Monsters is not only a game, but was once a tradition in an ancient culture that we carry on today. Duel Monsters is a game between 2 or 4 opponents in which they battle to reduce each other's life points to 0. And they do this through monsters, spell, and trap cards. Its origins in ancient Egypt make the game unique and have pushed it into the forefront of entertainment for all ages, young and old. Duel Monsters is played with cards, but won with heart and determination, and it is crucial to remember that as long as you keep your heart in the cards, you can accomplish anything.